All right, welcome back to Problem Solver Politics. I am your host, Cardin Ellis, with Cody the Oracle.
Hey, everyone.
And today we're going to talk about a big measurable quantifier. Andrew Yang is trending number 2, I believe, on Twitter. No, Google Andrew Yang is trending.
Yes, it is not right now. It is currently, as of the time we're recording, outside of the top 10. However, it did reach as high as number 2 in the U.S. trending list, which we'll show you guys in a few minutes here.
So yeah, that's pretty significant. As we were talking about before, there's a lot of scientific polling that's going on. We actually, if we got time at the end of this video, we're going to dive into the Google search results and so on and so forth. There's a reason why Mark Twain said there's lies, there's damn lies, and then there's statistics, because the different statistics that you can glean can give you all kinds of false correlations, positive correlations, so on and so forth. But you really at this point can look at a lot of the Andrew Yang data in a very negative or very positive light. Therefore, it becomes kind of this Rorschach test about whether you like him or you don't. For all of you Bernie bros out there, a Rorschach test is an ink blot test. Anyway, moving on. I was just kidding, guys. Anyway, moving on. There are some measurable quantifiers, however, that pretty much do show just a positive impact that has been reached. And one of those is Twitter rankings. They just can't lie. People are hashtagging them. So, Cody, why don't you just rattle off what's going on with Google Andrew Yang trending?
Yeah. Well, I mean, today on Twitter. So today we're recording this. This is Sunday, the 25th. And if you look right here, we're recording at about 4 p.m. Pacific time. So we're going back 8 hours ago would be about 8 a.m. and moving forward. So you can see going back even further than that. But Google Andrew Yang had been in the top 5 of U.S. Twitter trends, for about a solid 5 hours. Eventually, it was overtaken and moved down.
Wait, before you go somewhere, can we just notice that go to the Google Andrew Yang hashtag, and what was it above? It was below hashtag Sunday morning, and on a Sunday morning that makes sense.
Yeah.
Then number 2 is Google Andrew Yang, and then number 3 was go back to 8 hours ago. Weird things to put up your.
Well, what I thought was more interesting, and we're going to get to, I thought was more relevant, is you'll notice, and I think this is going to kind of speak to what makes Andrew Yang really unique as a candidate, is look at these Twitter trends. What other United States presidential candidate do you see on these Twitter trends? I can't say it out loud. Which one do you see, man?
Oh, goodness gracious. I see Google Andrew Yang as number 3, 7
There's another
hours
candidate
ago.
on there. Who is it?
I'm not seeing it. The font's too small on our playback screen.
There's somewhere in here is another candidate, man. I'm sure you guys watching have seen it.
Power Premier.
Not Trey Songz, not Doug Martin, NFL running back Doug Martin.
Josh Jones, no, Newcastle, LGBTQ cuties, Joe Walsh. Joe.
There we go. Now, here's something I want to highlight exactly the interesting part of Google Andrew Yang. We did a full video on this, but I want to show you guys something. So what happens when you Google another presidential candidate? What happens when you Google Joe Walsh?
Oh, boy.
Well, when you Google Joe Walsh...
Okay.
I'm sorry, guys. I can see it on my screen. I'll show you guys. The very first thing that comes up, the very first thing you see, Joe Walsh apologizes for past racist comments while announcing presidency. It's the first thing you see about the guy.
You know what's so sad is I don't even know if I believe that.
No, I
mean, because he's a Republican candidate, therefore he will be called racist.
How much do you know about Joe Walsh?
Therefore, almost nothing. Okay, but I know the media just hates Republicans.
I know a little bit more than you, and trust me, they're not 100% off on this one.
Oh my gosh, really? What did he say?
Yeah, we can go pull it up more and look at some more stuff. He's not the most racist guy of all time, but the things he said can definitely be viewed as racist. So we can go through that in a separate video.
But is it any worse than Joe Biden saying, well, you know,
maybe they're both bad. They're both
black
bad.
Kids can be smart like white kids or whatever he
didn't
said.
Say that. He said poor kids can be as smart as white kids.
Yeah, whatever he said.
But if you want, we can go through the article. And I mean, he was almost kicked off as off the air as a radio host. Some of the stuff I'm showing some Joe Walsh stuff on screen. Some of this is just kind of some basic general Republican stuff, but for the most part,
okay.
He's kind of a weirdo. Anyway.
Well, I think you'd have to be a weirdo on the Republican side in order to run against Donald Trump. You would have to be crazy.
Of course. But here's the point, though. My point being this. So we brought this up with the Andrew Yang thing originally. So again, we go and we look at the Twitter trends for the day, and you notice that it's Google Andrew Yang as one presidential candidate and Joe Walsh is the other. You Google Andrew Yang has never had to apologize for racist comments. Andrew Yang has never had to come out and say, I apologize, I was misunderstood. It's not like that isn't the kind of candidate Andrew Yang is.
Yeah.
And just on a random day, Joe Walsh happens to be up there. He's going to run for president, and you Google his name, very first thing that comes up, apologizes for racist comments. That is what is very, very interesting about the Andrew Yang campaign, man, is you really can just Google Andrew Yang, and what you find is probably not going to be something you don't like, Maybe you'll disagree with, but it's not going to be, he did now, what? He's under investigation? Excuse me? Nothing like that.
You're right. Now, I don't know a lot about Joe Walsh, but I'm just going to totally tell you the psychology of what's kicking in right now. I do know he was a radio host, and having been a radio host myself, I know all the time you're thinking out loud live on air. So you have to be given all kinds of latitude for things. And the propensity to call things something ist that they weren't really intended to be. I think you can talk about race without being racist. You can talk about culture without being anti that culture. You can talk about
dude, why
LGBTQ
are you defending a guy you know nothing about? You're just defending some person.
I'm just saying that when I hear the media lambasting somebody as racist, anti something else, it gives me pause, and I think twice, and I don't know. Hey, maybe you should take that time to learn more about the person and make up your own mind. Yeah, but see, I always wonder if Andrew Yang actually had a radio show for a year, if they wouldn't come after him.
No, I don't think so.
If somebody has enough hours of their thoughts out in cyberspace, if Mother Teresa wouldn't have people coming after her. You know what I'm saying? That's just how brutal our media sphere is right now.
There's a lot of people who are on radio who don't get accused of doing things on radio. Or there's one like Howard Stern, who do Howard Stern or whatever when he first. It's ridiculous what this guy got away with, and he's still on the air because he never backed down, never apologized.
You and I watch Eric Andre.
Yeah.
And I mean, Eric Andre just straight up disrobed saying I was born a woman, and the LGBTQ lobby does not go after him. Now, it was hilarious. One of the bravest, gutsiest comedic moves I've ever seen in my life.
Andy Samberg wouldn't follow him. Andy Samberg was standing next to him and literally said, sorry, dude, I'm not going to do this.
I can't do this. So, I mean, if you just out over the topped Andy Samberg, you are a genius. And nobody actually thinks that was a statement against transgender people. It was just funny.
Separate issue, though. He is literally an absurdist comedian. Like, he literally is an absurdist performer. But
well, I think we need some of that back, and that's part of the reason why when there's Joe Walsh criticisms, I just, not having known the guy, it gives me pause, not even having known him. Now, who knows? But maybe he just is like the next Steve King, and we just don't know.
Yeah, like, my advice is if you don't know something a lot about someone, don't defend them. Just say, hey, I want to know more. I don't know yet. But again,
I'm just trying to be a good person like Cody the Oracle, who gives the perpetual benefit of the doubt.
Exactly.
That's all I'm trying to do.
I don't defend people I don't know. I don't know you. But anyway, here we go. I want to highlight one last thing. Here's Andrew Yang trending number 2 on Google, Andrew Yang on Twitter. And then I want to go over to the search trends on Google. Sorry, you look at the Google search trends over the last 30 days.
Awesome.
Andrew Yang has been the second most Googled candidate running in the election, with the first being Bernie Sanders. But
now, Nerds for Yang is
slim margin for Bernie Sanders over Yang.
Yeah. Nerds for Yang is always analyzing, betting odds, Google Trends, so on and so forth. So I love bringing up this data in concert with a lot of things he says, but I always noticed your interpretations seem far less optimistic than his, because you say if you look out over the last 6 months that his spikes aren't as large. Give us your analysis of that.
What? Well, no, I was just saying, I just noticed if you go from the past 90 days to the past 3 months, Andrew Yang goes from being the second most searched candidate to the 5th, behind Kamala, Bernie, Elizabeth Warren, and Joe Biden. And you notice Kamala, the biggest spike. To be honest, I don't think these numbers really matter all that much, because you know what? Newcastle is trending on Twitter. I don't think all of a sudden Newcastle is going to become a more popular, I believe that they're referring to the football club. They're probably going to stay about the same. It's just right now people are talking about them. Like, sometimes search interest spikes. I search for Andrew Yang. I know who Andrew Yang is. I talk about him every day. I Google him every day. I'm included in these metrics. So there's the guy I always say with statistics, man. Like, you get to pick what you want to prove, and then you just find the one that, because for example, if I wanted to prove people aren't interested in Andrew Yang, I'd do this. I'd say, well, if you look over the past 12 months at search terms, you can clearly see Andrew Yang is well behind the rest of these people. It's like, well, yeah, but because he wasn't newsworthy 12 months ago. Like, you could just pick a metric and say, well, over the past 5 years, you know what I mean? Like, you could always find, and then you could do, if you look at the past 4 hours, let's see who won the last 4 hours. Oh, what do you know? That is actually the most fascinating number I've pulled up in this whole thing we've done. Sorry, guys. I just did this live. Even though Google Andrew Yang has been trending on Twitter over the past 4 hours, pull up Google Trends. He is not being Google searched as much as Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren.
But that also could just because of Sunday news profiles, because the media is obsessed with
Again,
Bernie Sanders,
my larger point being
Elizabeth Warren and Kamala Harris.
My larger point being these things, they're fun. They're cool to keep an eye on. They don't mean nothing.
They don't mean nothing.
But they're statistics, and statistics can be so easily manipulated. And for example, I could use the same data set for the same video we just spoke on, and I could use the same data set and say, proof that Andrew Yang's followers are bots because of X, Y, and Z, because look at this over the last 4 hours. I don't believe that, but I'm just saying, if you really want to manipulate numbers and put your spin on them that you want, it's always available. It's always malleable. I wouldn't say, though, that it's for nothing, that in the United States Twitter trends, where Andrew Yang's running for president, sorry about that.
Yeah.
He was at one point the second trending, and he was top 5 for essentially Sunday morning, a big Twitter time. It's not for nothing. Just at the same time, you have to remember, like I said, you can look, and over the past 4 hours, it didn't actually turn into people Googling Andrew Yang. So that's what thing's fascinating.
All right, awesome. So please let us know what you guys think in the comments below. Let us know what you guys opine, what this means, in your opinion, about the candidacy of Andrew Yang. If you guys haven't subscribed yet, please, there's an icon right here. Make sure you subscribe. And if you want to check out the last 2 videos that you might have missed, there's going to be some icons right here where you can check out our latest last 2 videos. Make sure if you haven't liked this video yet, smash that like button. This is Problem Solver Politics.